There was me, that is Alex, and my three Drews, that is Pete, Georgie, and Dim. And we sat in the Korova milk bar trying to make up our razoo-docs what to do with the evening. The Korova milk bar sold Milk Plus, which is what we were drinking. This would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of the old ultra-violence.
He demanded 127 takes for a single scene. He made outer space look real before humans had even walked on the moon. And he pushed actors so far beyond their limits, some never recovered. Stanley Kubrick wasn't just a filmmaker, he was a relentless perfectionist, a technical mastermind, and a director who, according to legend, he almost never yelled the one word that defines the end of a scene: cut. In fact, his obsessive attention to detail made him one of the most enigmatic figures in film history. We're diving into the story of the director who couldn't yell cut through three of his most defining films, each from a different decade. From the eerie silence of space in 2001, A Space Odyssey, to the psychological breakdown inside the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, and finally to the masked, mysterious world of Eyes Wide Shut. These are the movies that show how far Kubrick would go to make something perfect. Let's go back, not just to the beginning of Kubrick's career, but to the beginning of time itself, or at least that's how 2001, A Space Odyssey begins, with apes, a mysterious monolith, and a dawn of man sequence that rewired the way cinema tells stories. Released in 1968, 2001 wasn't just a sci-fi film, it was Kubrick's declaration of artistic ambition. A film with minimal dialogue, maximal visual storytelling, and ideas so big they made Hollywood nervous. He spent 6 years developing the project, 2 on research and writing, 4 on production. And it shows. Kubrick wasn't just building a movie, he was engineering an experience. And he simply couldn't let go. Even during post-production, he kept making adjustments, delaying the release, cutting sequences, and redoing effects shots. For Kubrick, cut was never final. It was a suggestion. Shot on pristine 65mm film and projected in 70mm, the visuals are still crisp enough to rival digital, but the realism came from more than the camera. Kubrick collaborated directly with NASA engineers, aerospace consultants, and a world-class art department to imagine a future that wasn't fantastical, but plausible. Rotating space stations, zero-gravity toilets, branded spaceships with Pan Am logos. It was a vision of space travel that felt inevitable, not imaginary. And then there's Hal, the HAL 9000 computer. Calm, logical, and murderous, is arguably the most chilling villain in cinema history. Kubrick didn't just tell a story about a machine malfunctioning. He gave us a warning about what happens when technological evolution outpaces human morality. And he did it with almost surgical precision, through lighting, set design, and eerily detached performances. So what's the most perfectionist element of 2001? You could point to the hundreds of visual effects shots done completely in camera, or the fact that every button, panel, and readout in the spaceship interior was built from scratch. Why go to such lengths for set pieces barely visible on screen? Because Kubrick couldn't bring himself to fake it. To yell cut and say, that's good enough, wasn't in his vocabulary. He needed it to feel real, even if only he ever knew the difference. In the end, 2001 wasn't just ahead of its time. It redefined what time meant in film, bending narrative structure, abandoning conventional pacing, and replacing exposition with experience. In many ways, it feels like a film made by someone afraid to stop, to finalize, to cut. And yet that's what gives it its hypnotic, infinite feeling, a film as vast and unending as space itself. Kubrick didn't yell cut, because in his mind, the story hadn't truly ended. Maybe it still hasn't. If 2001 was Kubrick's quest for visual and technical perfection, The Shining was where that same perfectionism collided head-on with human performance. This time, the set wasn't a spaceship, it was a haunted hotel. And what Kubrick was trying to control wasn't just lighting or effects, it was people. Filmed in 1979, The Shining marked the end of a revolutionary era in cinema, a decade where directors had full creative reign, before the blockbuster boom of the 1980s took over. While films like Apocalypse Now and Heaven's Gate pushed budgets and boundaries, The Shining pushed something more delicate: the human psyche. Based on Stephen King's novel, Kubrick chose to shoot most of the film in a hotel in Colorado, one that already felt isolated, empty, and ominous. It was the perfect setting, but inside that setting, he created something far more terrifying than ghosts, a work environment defined by emotional exhaustion. Shelley Duvall, cast as Wendy Torrance, was subjected to a level of psychological pressure rarely seen on film sets. Kubrick demanded dozens, sometimes over 100, takes for a single shot. The infamous baseball bat scene, 127 takes. Not because she wasn't good, but because Kubrick refused to say cut until he saw something real, something broken. What the audience sees as raw terror was, in many ways, just that. Jack Nicholson, playing the unhinged Jack Torrance, was more at ease with Kubrick's relentless direction, even laughing in behind-the-scenes footage about the film's grueling 10-month shoot. But Duvall wasn't so lucky. The process left her drained, mentally and physically. Decades later, she still described it as traumatic. Even casting choices reflected Kubrick's obsessive habits. Actor Slim Pickens was offered the role of Dick Halloran, but declined when he heard that Kubrick was known for shooting 100 takes. His replacement, Scatman Crothers, did exactly that, and reportedly broke down crying on set. Kubrick didn't just resist yelling cut, he weaponized it. The longer the camera rolled, the more control he had, the more exhausted the actors became, the more authentic their performances. In his mind, film wasn't about comfort or cooperation, it was about control. And yet, the result is undeniable. The Shining is a towering achievement in horror, a film that unnerves not just because of what's on screen, but because you can feel the discomfort behind the scenes. Every shot is calculated, every hallway impossibly symmetrical. Kubrick took the cold precision of Barry Lyndon and A Clockwork Orange and turned it into fear. Pure, creeping, unforgettable fear. In the end, Kubrick didn't need ghosts to haunt his film. He haunted it himself by refusing to ever let go, to ever say, "That's enough." He couldn't yell cut. And in The Shining, that obsession left a mark deeper than any axe through a door. Shot over 18 months, an eternity by Hollywood standards, Eyes Wide Shut pushed its stars, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, to their emotional and physical limits. They were warned in advance. This wouldn't be a typical shoot. Kubrick didn't do typical. What he offered was immersion, exactitude, and exhaustion. In return, he pulled layered, quietly intense performances out of both actors, the kind that feel rehearsed to death and yet somehow alive. Kubrick oversaw every detail, from the blocking of background actors at the mask ball to the exact shade of red in the bedroom lighting. Each frame feels designed, every gesture intentional. Even the pauses, the uncomfortable silences, were planned, stretched, and fine-tuned again and again. Just like before, Kubrick refused to yell cut until he saw something that felt unrepeatable. But here, his perfectionism reached ritualistic levels. The result is a film that feels both cinematic and surreal, like watching someone else's dream unfold, slowly, precisely, and a little too close to reality. The infamous masked orgy scene has become the film's visual signature, but it's not the spectacle that lingers, it's the atmosphere, that heavy, hushed tension, the feeling that something is always watching. Kubrick didn't just want you to see the elite's secret world, he wanted you to feel trapped inside it. To make it all feel real, Kubrick didn't shoot in New York, he rebuilt it. Entire city blocks were constructed on London sound stages, down to the smallest storefront detail. Because if the world looked fake, the illusion of control and the loss of it wouldn't hit as hard. And yet, even in its beauty, Eyes Wide Shut never offers closure. Like much of Kubrick's work, it ends on a question, not an answer. It's a film about masks, literal and metaphorical, and Kubrick, ever the perfectionist, never removes his own. Instead, he leaves us suspended in the dream, uncertain if we've woken up. Fitting, then, that Eyes Wide Shut was his last film. Kubrick died just days after submitting the final cut, a version many believe he still hadn't finished tweaking. Some say he would have kept editing if he'd lived longer. Others say he never wanted it to end, because maybe, for Kubrick, cut was never the goal. Maybe the work was always meant to continue, frame by frame, in pursuit of a perfection he knew he'd never quite reach. 3 films, 3 decades, 1 obsession. In 2001, A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick tried to conquer time and space. In The Shining, he tried to control human fear. And in Eyes Wide Shut, he tried to strip away illusion itself. What links them isn't just genius, it's a refusal to let go, a refusal to say cut, until every frame felt inevitable. Kubrick didn't just direct movies, he engineered worlds. He pushed film to its absolute limits, and sometimes the people within it too. He was the director who couldn't yell cut, because for him, perfection wasn't a destination. It was the pursuit itself. If you found this deep dive into obsessive filmmaking as hypnotic as his films, hit subscribe, give this video a like, and drop a comment which Kubrick film still haunts you the most. Thanks for watching, and remember, some directors chase the shot, but Kubrick chased the truth behind it. We'll see you in the next frame.